On a night of tension and turmoil, Phyllis Summers struggles with the profound emotions of a traumatic experience, her kidnapping and months of captivity. In her room, darkness falls, and haunting memories return. Tonight, Phyllis will not only face her past, but also her relationships that have been tested over time, including Sharon Newman, with whom she had a strained relationship. Night terror in her lonely moments in her room, Phyllis cannot stop recalling the nightmares of her traumatic kidnapping. Every moment is like a war in her mind, making Phyllis feel invaded, out of control. Images of her captors, the psychological and physical torture haunt her, making it difficult for her to find peace. Although she tried to push them away, the indelible memories kept coming back, making her scared and confused. But not long after, the appearance of her closest relatives, Nick Newman and Summer Newman, Hunter King, broke Phyllis's wall of isolation. They stood outside her door, determined not to leave, despite her efforts to chase them away. Summer, the daughter Phyllis had always loved and cared for, could not bear to see her mother in such pain. She knew that, although Phyllis had always been a strong person, she also needed the support of her family to overcome this obsession. Tense conversation, Phyllis crying in Nick's arms when Nick entered the room and saw Phyllis facing a nightmare. He did not hesitate to run to her side, holding her in his arms. At this moment, Phyllis could not control herself anymore. Tears fell, pouring down her face like a broken dam. "I can't take it anymore, Nick. Don't let them talk about the kidnapping, don't make me remember all that happened," she sobbed, her voice choked with pain and helplessness. Nick just held her tighter, saying nothing, but his presence was all Phyllis needed at the moment. Summer stood beside her, her eyes filled with tears, but she also knew that Phyllis needed time to settle down. Phyllis kept begging Nick to stop asking questions, not wanting to face too many truths about what she had been through. That feeling of helplessness, when everything was out of her control, made her feel like she was about to collapse. However, when the rage passed, Phyllis felt a strange calm. She raised her face, looked at Nick with eyes full of regret, and said softly, "I'm sorry, I don't know what to do." Difficulty in the relationship with Sharon Newman. Despite having many people around her willing to help, Phyllis still cannot let go of her hatred for Sharon. Over the years, the tension between Phyllis and Sharon has always been an indispensable part of the plot of the show. For Phyllis, Sharon is not only a competitor at work but also someone who has broken many things in her life. So how can Phyllis make peace with Sharon, someone she has confronted so many times in the past? Nick realizes this and gently advises her, "Maybe this time, this is an opportunity for you to make a positive step forward, Phyllis. Sometimes, facing people you don't like is the only way to overcome yourself." However, Phyllis does not easily change her mind. She still feels angry and frustrated when remembering the endless battles with Sharon. Nick takes a step toward reconciliation, reaching out to Sharon to help Phyllis. Nick decides to make a bold move. He takes out his phone and texts Sharon about meeting up at Crimson Lights, where they can face each other and possibly work through their issues. Sharon, who is worried about what Phyllis might be going through, accepts immediately. Meanwhile, Phyllis is still struggling with herself, but she begins to see that this might be an opportunity for her to let go of her grudges, to open up and start over. While she can't completely forgive Sharon, she at least realizes that perhaps a meeting with Sharon will help her see things from a different perspective, instead of continuing to live in the painful past. Phyllis may not be able to forget the hurt Sharon caused her in the past, but over time, she will learn to forgive herself and others. Both Phyllis and Sharon are on the path to healing, and the upcoming meeting will be an important step forward. However, it will not be an easy meeting. It will be challenging and emotional, but it will also be an opportunity for both women to move past the darkness of their past and rebuild their relationship, even under the most difficult circumstances. Phyllis may not be able to forget the hurt Sharon caused her in the past, but over time, she will learn to forgive herself and others. Both Phyllis and Sharon are on the path to healing, and the upcoming meeting will be an important step. However, it will not be an easy meeting. It will be challenging and emotional, but it will also be an opportunity for both women to move past the darkness of the past and rebuild their relationship, even under the most difficult circumstances. This story is not only about the confrontation between two strong women, but also about the ability to change, forgive, and learn to let go in order to move forward in life. On Young and the Restless, dramatic events always lead to emotional moments and changes in the characters' relationships. Phyllis Summers, once a symbol of strength and resilience, is now facing her dark past after a horrific kidnapping. However, in the midst of her panic and pain, the presence of loved ones and the appearance of opportunities for reconciliation will be the light at the end of the tunnel, allowing her to find a new path. This is the story of Phyllis, Nick, Summer, Sharon, and Daniel, as they face memories, hatred, and the opportunities for change, even though sometimes the past can be too great to overcome. Phyllis crying in Nick's arms. The story begins in Phyllis's bedroom, where she is struggling with nightmares of her kidnapping. She cannot stop seeing the ghost of her captor, images of separation, pain, and captivity. These images keep replaying in her mind, making it impossible for her to calm down. Meanwhile, Nick Newman, her ex, stood by her side and was the only one who could help her find comfort. When Nick entered the room and held Phyllis in his arms, she could no longer contain her emotions. Tears streamed down her face, and Phyllis let herself drift away in pain. "I can't take it anymore, Nick," she choked out. "I can't forget what happened." Despite the doubts and hatred in her heart, Phyllis needed someone to comfort her, and Nick was the only one who could do that. Nick gently stroked her hair and whispered, "You'll get through this, Phyllis. You're not alone." Nick's presence was the only thing that could comfort Phyllis, even for a brief moment. As the pain inside her slowly faded, Phyllis struggled to sit up, ashamed of herself for letting herself be so weak. "I'm sorry," she said, "I don't know what to do." But Nick just shook his head, not blaming her, but simply saying, "Don't apologize, Phyllis. You've been through a lot." While Phyllis was slowly regaining her composure, Summer stood silently outside the door, her eyes filled with worry. She didn't want to see her mother in such pain, but at the same time, she didn't want to intrude on her mother and Nick's private moment. "Daniel and Sharon, will reconciliation really happen?" While Phyllis was trying to come to terms with what had happened, Daniel Romalotti was having a conversation with Sharon Newman about the kidnapping. During this conversation, Daniel was not only concerned about what had happened to Phyllis, but also wondering if Sharon was really ready to move past the hatred and conflicts with Phyllis. "Sharon, do you think the reconciliation between your mother and Phyllis can last?" Daniel asked, his eyes filled with sadness. Sharon was silent for a moment, thinking about Daniel's question. Her life had been full of ups and downs, but her relationship with Phyllis had always been one of the hardest to resolve. "I'm not sure," Sharon sighed, "but maybe this is a chance for all of us to start over. It might not be easy, but at least it's a step forward." Daniel nodded, not wanting Sharon to have to bear all of these hardships alone. "I believe your mother would want a chance to resolve these issues, right?" Sharon looked into Daniel's eyes, smiling softly. "I hope so. I think this could be the beginning of a reconciliation, not only for Phyllis, but for me and Daniel." The encounter at Crimson Lights. The encounter that Sharon didn't expect was coming. After receiving a text message from Nick about the encounter at Crimson Lights, Sharon decided to go there. She didn't know what to expect, but part of her wanted to know if Phyllis and Nick's reconciliation could bring her any hope. When Sharon entered the cafe, her eyes immediately fell on Nick, who was sitting with Phyllis and Summer. The atmosphere between them was tense, and Sharon could sense the worry in Phyllis's eyes. Nick stood up when he saw Sharon, and Summer looked at her mother with concern. Despite the difficulties, this is the first time Phyllis and Sharon have actually sat down to discuss what happened, about the painful past, but also the opportunity to heal and start over. Neither of them can predict whether this reconciliation will last, but at least, in that moment, they have taken an important step toward each other. This story is not just about Phyllis and Sharon, but also about how the characters on The Young and the Restless have to face the past, face their mistakes and find a way to start over. Can they overcome the barriers that have been built up for so long, or will things just continue to fall into a stalemate? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain, reconciliation, no matter how difficult, is always an important step on the road forward. The Young and the Restless, the complex relationships between the characters are always the highlight, making the story attractive and dramatic. From emotional suffering to cunning business plots, each character faces constant challenges. In this article, we will follow the meeting between Daniel and Tessa at Society, where personal emotions and work challenges gradually blend together. Besides, the mysterious appearance of Aristotle Dumas also makes the situation more tense when the relationship between him and Victor Newman is pushed to a new level. Daniel and Tessa, Silent Feelings. The meeting between Daniel Romolotti, Michael Graziadei, and Tessa at Society begins when Daniel, after long days of struggling with suppressed emotions, decides to find a quiet place to talk. The waves of emotions inside him keep rising. He had never felt so alone, especially when the feeling of helplessness grew stronger. Tessa, who was sitting by the window, looking out with a thoughtful gaze, noticed the uncertainty in Daniel's eyes as soon as he walked in. Tessa, with her own painful past, especially when Mariah Copeland was pregnant and kidnapped, could understand what Daniel was going through. She had also experienced moments that seemed insurmountable. The helplessness, the pain of not being able to protect the people she loved, had haunted Tessa for a long time. "I know how you feel, Daniel," Tessa said softly, her eyes shining with empathy. "When Mariah was pregnant and kidnapped, I felt helpless, trapped in my own fear. I understand the despair you feel." Daniel sat down next to Tessa, feeling an immediate connection. Not only did he find empathy, but he also saw a ray of light in the darkness. "Tessa, I don't know what to do anymore. I feel like I can't control everything around me. Everything seems to be beyond my control." Tessa listened to him, Daniel's words ringing out like a deep sadness. She knew that sometimes, sharing and listening can be the only medicine to heal the wounds in her heart. After a moment of silence, Tessa spoke, in a calm voice, "Maybe you need to face your feelings, Daniel. Don't let them control you. Let them go and then you will find your own way." Daniel thanked Tessa with grateful eyes. "Thank you, Tessa. You always make me feel less alone. I don't know what I would do without you." In that moment, Daniel felt like the pieces of his life began to fit together. The loneliness is no longer as heavy as it used to be, and he knows that, although there are still many things he cannot solve, at least he does not have to face them alone. While Daniel finds solace in his conversation with Tessa, at GCAC, another story is playing out, the story of Victor Newman and Michael about Victor's fraught relationship with Aristotle. Aristotle Dumas, a cunning figure in the business world, has been Victor's bitter rival for many years. The two have fought fiercely for control of major companies, and in many cases, they have been at stalemate. Victor shares with Michael about his dramatic relationship with Aristotle, noting that sometimes he wins, but other times Aristotle wins. "It's an interesting battle, Michael," Victor says, looking into the distance. "But I always felt that Aristotle had a special strategy. He never gave up easily." Michael, always interested in the important details of Victor's work, curiously asked why Aristotle had returned at this time. "Victor, what do you think about Aristotle's appearance at this time? Why did he come back?" Victor thought for a moment, then replied, "I tried to lure him out when he was about to disappear, but he never took the bait. Aristotle's style is to hit and run, as he has done in the past." Michael looked at Victor, worried about the possibility that Aristotle might cause trouble in the future. "But are you sure that he doesn't care about Winters?" Michael asked. Although Michael's research showed that Aristotle didn't seem to care about Winters' company, Victor still felt a strange unease. He was worried that Aristotle's appearance this time was not a coincidence, but could be related to larger conspiracies that he had not yet realized. This made it impossible for Victor to ignore any signs. The story between Daniel and Tessa, as well as the mysterious appearance of Aristotle Dumas, are important developments in The Young and the Restless. From the complex emotions and challenging relationships of the characters, to the intrigue in the business world, everything is tied together in a dense web. Each character is facing their own challenges, but also creating new opportunities for change. Whether Daniel is seeking comfort from close friends, or Victor is worried about the threat of Aristotle, this story is not just about competition or love, but also about how each person must learn to face their fears and make difficult decisions in life. Can Daniel overcome his feelings of powerlessness? Can Victor continue to maintain the upper hand in the battle with Aristotle? All will be revealed in the upcoming episodes of The Young and the Restless. Subscribe to YNR to stay up to date with the latest news on our channel.